Cortana, fashion fun with flair. Cortana Mall is waiting. Come on, I'll meet you there.
Hello and welcome to this vlog on a tour of Cortana Mall in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which was done in May of 2019 on a Saturday late afternoon, early evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. So right now, this is the Dillards clearance outlet. This is actually one of the oldest tenants in the anchors in the mall. It was originally Goudchaux, which was a Baton Rouge-based department store that was located between downtown and mid-city Baton Rouge. This was their first branch operation in 1976. It opened in February, and then the rest of the mall opened in August of 1976. So Goudchaux later bought out Maison Blanche in New Orleans. And given that New Orleans had a similar sounding store named Goudchaux, there was just a small difference in spelling. The Goudchaux in Baton Rouge was Goudchaux, whereas New Orleans was Godchaux. They changed the name of all the stores to Maison Blanche Goudchaux, and then eventually dropped the Goudchaux name, and just everything became Maison Blanche, including this store. In 1997, Dillard's purchased the Maison Blanche chain, and Dillard's, which had a location in this mall, moved to the old Goudchaux Maison Blanche location. And so in this video, we are going to go, I'm going to drive around the perimeter of the mall first, and then we will go inside and take a look. Unfortunately, the Dillard's clearance store closed right as I was filming, so I was unable to go into there, but we should be able to go into the rest of the mall and see how everything is. And one thing about the Dillard's clearance outlet is that it was converted to a clearance outlet around 2011, 2012. That was formerly the Chelsea Street Pub, which later became a Hoppers, both local places, and then around 1995 it became Ruby Tuesday, and the Ruby Tuesday lasted until about 2008, and that is one of the mall entrances, mall entrance number 1. Over here is Jcpenney, which is one of two anchors that never changed its name and always stayed in the same place. The Jcpenney opened in 1976 with the mall in August, and it closed in the late spring, early summer of 2017. And Jcpenney is the only anchor that has two entrances into the mall, to the mall center, whereas all of the rest only have one, but only had one. So now we are going towards mall entrance number, now we're going towards the Sears. Sears, like Jcpenney, was another location that had stayed in the same spot, had the same location, and it too opened in 1976 and closed in early 2017 when that chain was experiencing downfall. And that was a tire center that the store had as well in the quite some time, but it was gone, I think, by the 90s. And here you can actually see some label scars on the Sears, on the old Sears. And of course, Sears has been experiencing some significant economic turmoil, so this location seemed very logical to close with all of the problems. Now we are coming upon the tenant that probably had the most name changes in its history. It was the original Dillard's from 1976 until about 1997 when the Dillard's moved. The chain later became Parisienne. This location later became Parisienne, and actually that's another entrance, which includes the U.S. Post, which includes a post office. The Parisienne later became McRae's. The Parisienne nameplate lasted about a year. McRae's lasted several. Then it became Foley's, which you can kind of see in the background in the label scar. And then it became Macy's. Macy's lasted until 2016, and it closed its location here. And it was the first of the 20-teen anchors closures at the mall. First was Macy's, and Sears, and then very quickly after Jcpenney. Over there is the Mervyn, so you can see the label scar there. Mervyn's at this anchor is actually the newest addition. It was built about a decade after the mall. It opened in 1988. Mervyn's also was the shortest lived. It closed in 2006 when that chain decided to focus more on the southwestern part of the country. And this Mervyn's has been used for functions such as the inner wheel, attic trash, and treasure sale since in the past decade. And if you go in there, which for those functions, which of course it's boarded up right now, you can still see a lot of the the lighting and structure of the mall, as well as some of the old labels and where everything was located. So it's actually pretty cool. And the attic trash and treasure sale usually occurs late February, early March. So now we're coming across Virginia College, which just left about a few. This chain was originally the H.J. Wilson Catalog Company, which was out of Baton Rouge. Um, that chain was later sold to Service Merchandise, which operated the store from 1985 until the very early 2000s. And upon its closure, it became Stephen Barry's athletic store, athletic wear. And Stephen Barry's didn't last very long in the mall, and it closed during the recession in 2009. And in 2010, Virginia College opened its location, and it stayed until 2018 when the entire college lost accreditation. So here at the Dillard's clearance store, there are 5 entrances. However, there's only 2 ways you can get in, and both of them are coming up right along here. And if you go inside, which we're not going to be able to do, you can still see some features of the original Goudchaux, such that if you look at the door handles, there are some G's. I'm going to show you a much better, cleaner version of what those look like in just a few at the end of the vlog. And they have also some pretty nice chandeliers and all of that. So, as I said, this was the first anchor that opened in February of 1976. It was also Goudchaux's second location. Its original store was very successful. It was actually called the world's longest department store. And that location lasted quite some time. And then it became Maison Blanche, and then Dillard's made it a clearance outlet in the late 90s when it purchased a chain, and then the clearance outlet died in 2000. So we're going to take mall entrance number 3, and this is bound by the Mervyns and the Dillards, McRae's, Parisian, McRae's, Foley's, and Macy's. So as you can see here, this is a mall directory. I'm going to guess it was done around summer of 2017 because it reflects Sears and Jcpenney closing. However, a lot of these tenants are no longer there. And we're going to go through and see. And the slogan, rediscover a great shopping tradition. So unfortunately, there really isn't that much to see here, but I'll show you some of the mall decline and the mall rot. And I'll explain a little bit later why the mall kind of became the way it is. So to the right here, that was the former entrance to Mervyn's, which is boarded up. There's some plant life, some skylights. That's a pretty big feature here in the mall. And this was a restaurant that I believe closed in the 20 teens. And the place that has its lights on is the Heart to Heart Care Clinic, which actually opened in the fall of 2018. So I know there's a lot of people who have vlogged about Cortana. However, many of these show a little bit more of an active mall. But this is what it looks like in May. So to the right, that was a Taco Bell. And back there is the Chick-fil-A, which actually opened in 1981. It was Baton Rouge's first Chick-fil-A. And it wasn't until the early 90s that more opened, such as at LSU's food court. And to the right there is the Philly cheesesteak, which is the only eating option left in the mall. That was previously an A&W. To the left is Bath and Body Works, which is really the only major anchor that is tenant that's really active inside the mall. To the right here is Mama Brava, which was a local Italian pizza place. Opened in 1979, closed in the early 2000s. Excellent pizza. It's probably the restaurant I miss most of all here in the mall. And one thing that Cortana used to do back in the day was um, decorate the storefronts, the vacant storefronts, with appliances and all, just to kind of mask things up, but not really that active. And there used to be a lot of kiosk in this area. This actually was the kiosk area, but of course most of the kiosks are gone. That's a Subway. That closed in 2018. And to the right here, this is Rainbow, and Rainbow had just closed when I filmed this. They were doing their store closing sale when I went in late April of 2019, but this was just a couple of weeks later and it was gone. That, of course, is the Great American Cookie, which opened in the late 80s. That closed again in 2017 or very early 2018. And these benches here, like these circular ones, these have been here since the 90s when the mall was renovated. That's Serenity, of course. That's a hair salon. I believe it is still open. Of course, given at 7 o'clock on a Saturday, not many people would be there. So we have actually two jewelry places here that are open. To the left is Elevate, and to the right is Carrots. I'm not going to film too much of their merchandise because I don't want to look too suspicious. And there's the security desk. And of course, given it rained, there are a lot of rain buckets collecting from the leaky ceilings. So this is one of the two entrances to Jcpenney. And this is actually a stage in front where people can do performances and all of that. And it was pretty active back in the mall's heyday. Or special events. So we're now walking towards mall entrance number 2, I believe. Yes, mall entrance number 2. And this is served by the former Virginia College, previously Stephen Barry's and Service Merchandise and H.J. Wilson. So here we don't really have too many open businesses, but one thing you'll see plenty of the candy carts. Those have been around, I'd say, for about a decade. I'm not exactly sure how fresh the candy is. I didn't check. That's actually the Elevate Church, which meets there on Sundays. It's still a pretty good tenant there. This is Cortana Land, which was a play area that was added, I believe, after Service Merchandise closed, so in the early 2000s. Of course, this is a Saturday evening, not really many kiddos here playing. So as I said, Virginia College had closed about 6 months before this occurred. It shut down pretty rapidly at the end of the fall semester, but you can still see they have a lot of things in there. And that was when the entire college decided to close. So it wasn't just Cortana, but it was a major casualty because now there's only one anchor that's available that's left, and that's the Dillard's Clearance Center. So this is actually where the security office is at, which is right there. And of course another map, identical to the one that was located at Mall Entrance 3. These of course exist here. So if you look here, most of these places are no longer here. Rainbow just closed. High Style closed a couple of months ago. All the athletic places are gone. GNC actually, Bath and Body Works is here, but GNC actually was one of the original locations, one of the original tenants in 1976, but it closed in, I think, late 2018, early 2019. Philly Grill is still there, and of course, Elegant Jewelers is still there. T-Shirt Factory closed in August of 2018. So Elegant, Carrots, and I'm going to show Sam's in a couple of minutes. Those are still here. But all these other places ain't there no more, as Benny Grunch said. And of course, there is still a post office and the Army recruiting. Um, so yeah, so this place has really taken a nosedive even in the 2 years since that map was created. So now we're heading back towards from 3 entrance 2 towards the center of the mall. So that's Bruges Estates, which has the blinking light, which is kind of eerie. So one thing about the mall is that when this mall opened, it put out of business it helped, I shouldn't say it put out a business, but it really gave the mall the original Baton Rouge Mall, Bon Marché, which was about a mile and a half to the west, gave it a run for its money. Bon Marché opened in 1960 as an open-air center. It later converted into an enclosed shopping mall in the mid-70s, right before Cortana opened. And there were some businesses that pulled out. However, Bon Marché lasted about 23 years, 24 years with Cortana. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And I think part of it was because it converted one of its anchors into a megaplex movie theater, which was the first one Baton Rouge had at the time. And I think that was a big enough draw to keep people going to that mall. So this is heading towards mall entrance number 1, which is served by the Dillards Clearance Center. And so there were a number of tenants here that were active until recently. One of them is the Victoria's Secret right there. That was around until at least until October of 2018 and has since closed in the past 6 to 7 months. The GNC to the left also is another recent casualty. That, of course, is a sign that shows you where all the anchors are. The Dillard's is there. The restrooms are there. And actually, it's sadly pretty accurate. Milano right there, of course, that's another recent casualty. I believe that was the Shoe Depot right there to the right. I could be wrong. And of course, if I say anything wrong, please let me know in the chat, in the comments. And I'm doing a lot of this based on memory. That was Walden Books. I know that for sure. I believe that closed around 2008. I remember going there in high school at times. It's gone. And then, of course, there's the KB Toys. That closed in the early to mid 2000s. Of course, both chains have since gone bankrupt. And here you can see some scrubs from the Virginia College, if you want them. But of course, the college is no longer in existence. And so Dillard's in 2017, at the end of 2017, shuttered its entrance here to the rest of the mall. So, as I said, you have to go in through the front. And even if you want to go shopping in this part of the mall, you're going to have to leave the Dillard's from the outside and come in through one of the 5 entrances. So as we go towards mall entrance number 1, we have a number of places here. So to the right, we have, of course, the Chelsea Street Pub, which lasted until about 1987-88. Then it later became a Hoppers, which was a revival of a drive-in that used to be located in South Louisiana. That lasted from the early to mid 90s. And then in 1995, that's Spaceport right there. That was an arcade that was one of the original 8 tenants. And that lasted till the mid 2000s. But here at this Ruby Tuesday opened in 1995, and it lasted until 2008. So Spaceport is to the right. Very good arcade place. Definitely had some fun there. So as we're walking towards the center of the mall again, I'm just going to explain a little bit more. So Bon Marché, the mall to the west of there, had a movie theater that really kept the place going. But of course, as the population of Baton Rouge shifted more and more to the south and to the east, it started to become less of a draw to people. So a lot of stores were replaced with discount stores, fewer chains, and some of their original anchors, such as Maison Blanche, Jcpenney, Woolworth, all closed. By the late 90s, when the Mall of Louisiana opened, Baton Rouge technically did have 3 enclosed shopping malls for a very brief period of time. Basically, Bon Marché started to really go down the tubes. The movie theater, which was owned by United Artists, they opened another one closer to the interstate, a few miles to the south and to the west. And within a year, the Bon Marché store closed. And the mall itself died in 2000 when Montgomery Wards went out of business. And because of that, but since then it's become a development, a shopping, a mixed-use office and real estate development. And it's been a little bit more successful here. So as I said, the Mall of Louisiana opened in 1997, and that was the first big blow to Cortana. That's when the mall kind of jumped the shark. And when that happened, Cortana lost about 15% of sales immediately. And there were some places, but most of the anchors still stayed the same, except for Dillard's changing and all of that. So we'll talk more about the downfall of Cortana later on in this vlog. So again, to the left is the Rainbow, which had just closed. It was within the past week or two. And to the right is Great American Cookie. Some sentimental memories here. When I used to come shopping with my mother and siblings, sometimes if we were good, we'd get a Great American Cookie and split it, 1 or 2 of them. But that closed in 2017 or early 2018. So again, this used to be the kiosk area. Most of it's replaced with furniture where you can sit. And that is Sam's Custom Jewelry. So I'm trying to be a little discreet here, so there are some things I'm going to show. So Sam's Custom Jewelry to the left, that's one jewelry place that's still around. So it's basically, you have a hair salon, you have 3 jewelers, you have Bath and Body Works, and you have Dillard's. And you have, of course, a church and a heart-to-heart care clinic. There's not really much else here. But to the right, we are going to cross the second entrance to the Old Jcpenney. And on the stage here, this is usually where Cortana had Easter Bunny and Santa Claus visits, as well as the Great Pumpkin one year. That was in 1991, the Pumpkin Man or the Pumpkin Patch. That's kind of interesting. So this is actually a nice, was formerly a pretty nice waterfall area by the old Dillard's, Parisienne, McRae's, Foley's, Macy's. And these fountains were silenced, I'd say, in 2018 or late 2017. And it was kind of rancid. The smell was a little rancid here, because you do still see some standing water. Kind of eerie as well. So, and here you can still see there are some display cases and all from the Macy's. And again, Macy's pulled out in 2016. And when it pulled out, you still had the Jcpenney, the Virginia College, the Sears, and of course Dillard. So this was really the second anchor to pull out of the mall. See some blood red ceilings there that need to be cleaned up a little bit. Again, it was raining this day. And the hair crown that you see to your left, that is a location that just closed. I mean, it would have closed within the past several months. It was still active, so it's another blow to the mall. And now we are walking towards entrances 4 and 5. So this is closer to the Sears. So we have Decadent Creations and a soul food place called the Cafe. The Cafe opened pretty late in the mall's history, but it closed in 2018. So that's why there's only one eatery left in here, and that was the Philly Grill. And coming up, you see a directory. And behind that is the original Piccadilly Cafeteria. That was a cafeteria restaurant based in Baton Rouge. Another original tenant in the mall. The Nail Studio is a recent closure. So the Piccadilly, I believe, closed. It closed between 2008 and 2012. So probably due to the recession. This was a Lens Crafters, of course, that also left as well. So there is some plant life here that they use. Sometimes it looks better than at other times, but the mall is kept up pretty nicely. So Cortana Mall was sold to Moonbeam in the early 20 teens, I believe around 2012 or 2013, for $6 million, and their objective was to make the mall, revitalize the mall. Unfortunately, they have not done the best job, and places have just been pulling out left and right. I definitely don't think Cortana Mall can exist as a dedicated shopping center. And with only a handful of tenants left and one anchor, I don't know how successful they're going to be. So this is a GameStop. This closed between February and March of 2018. I went right before Mardi Gras in 2018. Then when I went again during the Lenten season, it was gone. High Style, that is another location that just recently closed, within the past several months. So this is Sears. You can kind of see the inside, but most everything is stripped down. Of course, it closed as that chain has been experiencing many struggles over the past couple of years, along with Kmart. This was the T-shirt factory. That's another place that closed very, very, very recently. And one thing you can notice is that the places that most recently closed, you can kind of see that not only are they shuttered with, they're not only are their gates down, but also there is usually like a trash bag over them. So this is where we are at entrance 5. So I'm just going to show you the path that we took. Okay, so we started at entrance 3, walked through the center court, went up towards entrance 2 by Virginia College, went down towards entrance 1 by Dillard's, and then went back down towards entrance number 4, and now we're by entrance 5. And so I'm gonna show you a little bit of footage as I'm walking back towards entrance 3, but I didn't record walking out of the mall. But first, here we have the post office, the Army Recruiting Center, which I believe is still open. I don't think the Navy or the Air Force still have recruiting offices here, but the post office is still active. So after Mall of Louisiana opened, Cortana just experienced a big decline in sales. Another issue is that the population of Baton Rouge really spilled into the southeastern portion, closer to where the mall was built. Not to mention the adjacent parishes of Livingston and Ascension have experienced a lot of growth. And the Mall of Louisiana was located right off Interstate 10, making it easier for people to get to and from commuting. So that was the case. And this mall was actually built on one of the original big intersections in Baton Rouge, Airline Highway at Florida Boulevard, which was the main intersection of two main highways from 1941 onward. But as the interstate highway system was built in the 70s, more businesses opened along the interstate. And this mall is about 2.5 miles from Interstate 12. So that's another thing that's kind of hurt it. And so as the business is closed and the place was sold to Moonbeam, unfortunately, it's kind of been in retail free fall, and there's been quite a bit of mall rot. And the mall is still kept up decently. Of course, it needs to have its roof fixed, but again, I don't think it's going to survive as a retail venue. And that and as places are closing, there aren't many left. And it's covered a little bit in the media, mostly with its downfall. And the mall was pretty well advertised, well until, I'd say, about the mid-20 teens. And then when May season then pulled out, you didn't really get to see as much advertising. Of places in the mall. I mean, Cortana also does sponsor the Kiwanis Club in Baton Rouge, so you see some reference to Cortana with that. Um, but other than that, not really too much. And so it's only a matter of time before the mall completely shutters, or at least redevelops as something else. And this could be a good place for government offices, a school, a church, or additional churches, because there is a church that meets here in the mall. But it can be used for studios or entertainment venues. There's a lot of things that can happen. This actually was one of the largest malls. It was the largest enclosed mall in the South when it opened. So now we're leaving the mall, going by Mervyn's. And before we conclude the vlog, I want to show you a little bit of the outside and another little tenant I want to show you guys before we go. So in the outer ring of the mall, there are quite a few businesses that are still active. Most of them are facing Florida Boulevard. There are 2 restaurants, a Raising Cane's and a Burger King. There's an Office Depot, a Guitar Center, and a few other places along the entrance of the mall from Florida Boulevard. There's also a Walmart to the northeastern corner of the mall, which is pretty active. And there are a couple of places facing Airline that are somewhat active. And there were actually 3 known pretty good restaurants that were located just to the south of the mall, just to the along Airline Highway in front of the mall. But these buildings have since been demolished. One of them was a Bennigan's, one of them was an El Chico, one of them was a Roadhouse Grill, Black Eyed Pea, and TGI Fridays. But the Bennigan's was the last of them to close in 2008, and then the Mexican restaurant, I believe, opens shortly after. There was a Mexican restaurant that opened in the old El Chico, which I think lasted about 2009, 2010, and there was a Chinese restaurant in the middle location, which was the Black Eyed Pea and TGI Fridays and Roadhouse Grill. So we're going to head to the car care center that was originally a Goudchaux's car care center, right in front of the Dillard's Clearance Center. And I'm going to show you a few features that used to be at the Dillard's location before they did an exterior renovation. So, of course, the Mall of Louisiana still is pretty successful. I know online shopping has really put a beating on brick and mortar locations, and that has caused the closure of a lot of anchors from the past and a lot of shopping centers and malls. But Mall of Louisiana is still doing well. So this is the Tire Care Center. It's no longer in existence, but if you look at the doors here, you'll see the big gold brick, the golden bricks, and you can see the G's that were on the doors. So you can these doors are still at the Dillards. Of course, the G they've kind of worn off, and then the gold brick has since been removed as well. But it's actually a nice little feature. And we still have a few places here. I talked about that shopping center there. There's an Old Navy and a Furniture Expo, which was originally just for feet.